Hard work, real talk, no shortcuts. I'm Joseph Cabrera. This is American Operator. All right, team. I am here with Ken Murphy, Adventure Outdoors, in a very unique place. We are not in studio in Austin, Texas. We are surrounded by beautiful mountains and a fireplace, and I don't know, it's probably 62 degrees right now, but it feels absolutely perfect with sun shining in the mountain area. And man, so good to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Yeah. No, it's great to be here.
Well, I'm stoked to get into a lot of things, but I think let's kick it off with probably the most important question that folks listening are gonna ask first off the bat, which is, you're the first guy I think we've ever had from Ireland on the show. And if maybe we had other folks from Ireland, or they've had, family and ancestors from there, whatnot. But it is clear when talking to you, Ken, you are from the great place that they make a lot of great movies and a lot of great folk songs about and whatnot. Can you tell us a little bit about how a guy like you leaves the greenest place I've ever seen in my life to come here to the mountains of Colorado?
Oh, long story, cut it short. I went to university in London.
Okay.
And I wanted to study sports science. And I knew with a sports science degree, this is early 90s, place you wanted to come to where the careers was America. Professional sports, this was the home of it.
That was globally enough?
That was globally enough. I mean, it wasn't big in Europe. It wasn't, professional sports was where it was. And then was lucky enough, I applied for the lottery green card and won the lottery.
Wait, what does that mean, lottery?
Lottery.
They had like a few spots?
There's a lottery for a green card, and you would apply, and then you'd go for an interview at the U.S. Embassy, and you'd explain the reason why you wanted to move to America. And I was in university at the time in London, and I was speaking to the gentleman at the embassy, and I was like, I'm a student, definitely want to go there. And they said, if you come every summer, show us you really want to be here while you're a student, we'll honor that green card offer. So every summer I came to the East Coast and worked in tourism, worked in Boston, worked in New Hampshire, worked in Nantucket, and did the summer job, and then I'd go back to London. And
what were the jobs?
I did everything. I worked on a sailing boat in Nantucket. I worked on a fishing boat in Nantucket. I worked in an amusement park, carnival up in New Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. And I did that for a number of summers. I was a perpetual student for a while there. And then as soon as I graduated, literally set my last exam, following day, jumped on a plane, arrived in Boston, and did one final summer of tourism in Nantucket. And then I got a job with the Center for the Study of Sport out of Northeastern University there, and was doing that, loving it. Loving being involved in American sports, and It was really a cool job. Came out to Colorado for a week ski trip. And
just on a whim.
I kept walking past magazines in Boston and seeing the old ski magazines and thinking of skiing. And I mean, we don't have any snow in Ireland, and, never knew much about skiing. And I came out here for a week, and I thought, wow, there's more to America than the East Coast. That's all I'd seen.
Hey, y'all, real quick. Check it out. This show, if you like it, well, we like you, and love for you to give us a rating and a review. We read every comment, whether it's on Apple or Spotify. And here's the real reason why. It helps other Americans out there who are chasing their dream hear this message. And if you got a friend that you think could use a little inspiration and some of these words hit with you, please share this with them. All right, back to the show.
I remember calling my folks and saying, I'm quitting my job and I'm moving to Colorado. And they were like, what are you going to do? I said, no idea. And I went back to Boston, walked into my boss's office and said, you know what? Colorado was epic. And the snow and skiing and the whole thing, it was awesome. And he was such an awesome boss. He was like, I wish I had done what you're going to do right now.
Oh, really? He supported
says, if you want to come back, there's a job here for you, but go for it. I fully support it. And I got his blessing. It was easy to leave the job when the boss was in support of what you were doing. And flew out to the old Denver International Airport, or Stapleton Airport, and I was on my way to Steamboat. And I was going to go to Steamboat, get a job, figure it all out. And I'm sitting beside a guy in the plane, And he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to Steamboat. What are you going to do? No idea. He says, you don't need to go to Steamboat. You need to go to Breckenridge. Breckenridge, never even heard of Breckenridge. And I said, how do you get to Breckenridge? And he was like, oh, when you come out of the airport, there's a company that actually says vans to Breckenridge. And I'm like, okay. So got out of the airport.
What did you have, just a bag?
I just had a backpack. That's all I had, a backpack on my back. And got on the vans to Breckenridge, jumped up beside the driver because I was on my own, didn't sit in the back. And, and the driver's like, where are you going? No idea. Drop me somewhere. Like, is there a hostel? Is there this? So the driver dropped me at a place in Breckenridge that seemed to be like a hostel kind of place.
Yeah.
And went in there, got a bed, met a bunch of people who were similar to myself, who were moving to a ski area, trying to find housing, trying to do all that. And got a job at the ski resort. Became a lifty. It's like, I think, a rite of passage of when you don't know anything better, you become a lifty.
Can you, for folks who don't know what a lifty is? Yeah.
It's putting seats on chairs to send them up the mountain to
You're
go
that,
skiing.
You're that person
You're
there,
at the
shepherding
person
them on the
lining them up.
Yeah.
And did that for a winter and loved it and loved the skiing and got into it. And then met a bunch of Americans there who, at the end of the ski season, they were like, what are we going to do? And I said to them, I've just done 4 or 5 summers in Nantucket as a student. Why don't you all come back to Nantucket? So I did the seasonal thing, which seems to be the thing back then was, so I did the ski resort, and then I'd go to Nantucket for the summer. Came back to Breckenridge for the following winter. Met my wife there. And
skiing or something? Or?
No, met her at a bar.
Okay.
Met her at a bar. And chatted to her and said to her at the time, I'm like, I had this plan that I always wanted to travel to, but I went straight from college into a good job. And, and I always had in the back of my mind, I'm going to travel.
Yeah.
So I said to her, you want to go see the world and backpack? And she was like, yeah, why not? We were only dating. And the fact that she met this strange Irish guy who said, you want to go see the world? So we...
Wait, at that first day at the bar?
No, well, literally as we were dating. But we weren't dating. This was February.
So you sound like a Bob Seger
yeah,
song.
well, come October, we had saved enough money and we took off for a year around the world.
Oh, my gosh.
Came back, and then we were like, all right, is it time to get serious? What are we going to do with our lives? And both of us said, we love Colorado. Let's go back to Colorado.
Where did y'all go when you were traveling?
Oh, Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, Thailand, Southeast Asia, Europe, then back to America.
Just kind of, were y'all like bumming and camping around?
Bumming and camping and being the backpacker, just literally traveling, seeing things. And I suppose as a backpacker, it was my first opening to outdoor recreation because we did all the outdoor stuff. We went surfing in Fiji. We went hiking in Australia. We went hiking in New Zealand. We did all, New Zealand was the adventure capital of the world, you know? So we ended up in New Zealand in their summertime and thought, this is epic. And so we both came back to Colorado. She had an idea that she wanted to do, a business idea. And I'm like, I don't know still what I'm going to do. So I ended up still working for the ski resorts. And then the summer came along one summer and I suppose the natural progression then was, what are you going to do in the summer? And I thought, you know what, this whitewater rafting thing seems pretty cool. I'd heard people talk about it. So I said, I'm going to become a river guide. And thought, this is awesome. This between the skiing and being a river guide. And again, I never grew up doing any of this stuff.
Is all on the job training too?
All on the job training. And you
there?
got to think it's 30 years ago. So the training maybe wasn't as intense or as professional as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So did the river guide thing, loved it, and did that for a couple of years. And back then, whitewater rafting, it wasn't as much big business as it is now. And opportunities were growing. I suppose it was still counted as an extreme sport.
I see.
If you think about it now.
So not a lot of people were into it?
Not a lot of people were into it. It wasn't as popular as it is now. Companies were growing. So I luckily got involved in a company where I approached the owner at the beginning of my third season and said, hey, how about I help you with some marketing or help you with the business aspect of it? And he said, yeah, why don't you help me? So I got involved in the business side, got involved in the hiring and training guides and growing his company. And we sort of grew that company over the years. And he bought another rafting company and said, hey, do you want to come and help me run this other rafting company? And, right time, right place. And said, yeah, I'll do that. So joined up with him, grew that company, and then left that to go do some other jobs in tourism. And then in sort of 2009, I thought, I have this business idea. We need to get back involved in the whitewater rafting and the hiking and biking and jeeping and doing all of that. So started Adventure Outdoors in 2009.
Bringing it all together.
Brought it all together. But it all came together because I loved that career. And I was like, how can I make a career of it that's mine?
Was that something like, how did you get the bug? Like a lot of folks, so my wife and I, for example, her and I, one of our first, actually it's funny, your wife and I, like our first date was a 26-mile hike through a couple ecosystems through Alaska. I recognize that's not everybody's cup of tea. As a matter of fact, most of our friends are not into doing any of that. What was the bug early on that got you into that? Was that something your parents got you into?
No, not at all. My parents were the least outdoor rec folks. I grew up in a city, went to university in a city.
Yeah, we're in Ireland.
Dublin.
Okay.
Just in Dublin. I was heavily involved in sports.
Yeah.
I think there's a natural progression between sports and outdoor rec. You're athletic, you like being outside, the teamwork side of things. I was pretty involved in rugby and water polo and things like that. So it was that, I think the teamwork, whether it be on the mountain, I mean, whether it be your roommates or your coworkers going skiing for the day, or whether you're in the summertime and it's all your guides, and when you're not boating with guests, you're going on the river with your friends, your coworkers. So it was that whole camaraderie. I loved it, and we all had passion for being outside and sort of back then pushing the limits of what we were doing. Equipment wasn't the same as it is now.
Yeah.
And a little bit of that adrenaline junkie side of those recreation opportunities that existed. I mean, everything now is a little bit more monitored and a little bit more involved, and there's a lot more, I think, government agencies involved in managing. Not to say it wasn't there 30 years ago, but definitely not to the same extent.
Yeah, a little bit more lax.
More lax. But again, I think it was the people too.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all passionate about the same thing, and we recreate hard and we partied hard.
Yeah.
And we grew from there, and then I thought, well, how do I stay in this?
So you kind of just chased chased the
and
things
I always
that made you
had
tick.
that. Yeah, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My wife started a business here, and I always wanted to be my own boss. Don't get me wrong. I loved working for the companies I worked for prior, and I learned an awful lot from the companies I worked for. And then a game of time and place. I used to joke that everybody else's golf game was getting good while I was working, So I thought, it was great. I'll start my own business so my golf game will get good and find somebody else to run it. No, but that's not it,
there's a lot more
and it's still
to it.
not that way,
No.
And I love what I do. Like, I work every day, and my staff's like, why don't you take a day off?
I'm going to just do what I'm doing.
I just do what I do. And I tell everybody, I'm not in the recreation business. I'm actually in the people business. And I love people, and I love the stories and asking where people are from. And then I also love providing them with this experiences, and I love seeing the smile on their face. And don't get me wrong, there's days where there's not smiles on people's faces. But again, I tell everybody, I'm in the people business.
People business.
Yeah.
I got two. I want to go down in the people business path here, but two questions in my brain at the moment. I got an Irish question.
Yep.
And then I also have a whitewater rafting question. Stuck with the Irish one first. I don't know if that's the easy run or not, but I'm curious. What was the draw to Boston? I mean, I can't think of a
like
more,
every other Irish guy, you go to Boston, New York.
Thing.
Yeah, you go to Boston, you feel comfortable. It feels like home.
Like, do you hear about it when you're over in
yeah,
Ireland?
Yeah, you do. And I had family in Boston, and
okay.
And I'd visited them, and no, I think you go where you feel comfortable.
Sure.
And as a young Irish guy that arrived, is the joke. You arrive off the boat and you go, all right, what am I going to do? And it's all about the networking, so you go to a place where there's some networking or somebody knows. There's always somebody in Ireland knows somebody in Boston or somebody in New York where they, and the Irish and the Italians, I think we're very alike, that we're always like, oh, I know somebody that can help you. And we're not doing it out of ego. We're not doing it we do it because I think it's part of our culture. We network, we're tight communities. So you go to Boston where somebody's going to be able to say, I know where somebody can get you a room, or I know somebody can get you a job, so you feel comfortable. And again, having family there helped.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. That you're talking about community at the beginning of this. I mean, that it's funny to think about that.
When I came to Colorado, a lot of people questioned me, like, what on earth are you doing? You're going to Colorado?
Yeah.
There's no Irish community in Colorado. That's been the biggest learning curve for me when it comes to the whole being an immigrant and coming here. It seems to be that west of the Mississippi, it's not about your heritage. And it seems to be Boston, New York, all these areas have their Italian sectors and their Irish sectors and this, and you come west of the Mississippi and it's really not about being Irish or being Italian, it's you as a person. And that was refreshing. I think.
Oh, you like that?
I did love that. I think too, in Boston, some of the Irish Americans are more Irish than the Irish themselves. And I thought, oh, I wanted to come to America, and arriving in Boston sometimes felt like I was never out of Ireland. So
it's more Irish.
It was more Irish than being at home. I mean, I could walk down the street and I could get the food and the Irish newspapers, and I felt like, oh, this ain't America.
Yeah.
When I arrived in Colorado, I thought, wow, this is maybe what I thought what America was about.
Yeah. What can I ask you? What was your growing up? What was the vision of America? What was the daydream when you thought about it?
It was the TV programs I grew up with.
What was it? I'm always curious.
It's a kind of like. We laugh about it now, but it was the 80s TV. It's Knight Rider, it's Chips, it's LA, it's that's what we grew up with.
Yeah.
It's kind of that East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah.
I think everybody, forgets the middle of the country. I mean, we laugh about it. I've never been to Texas. The only thing I know from Texas growing up was South Fork.
Yeah.
All right, that was it. So I said, oh, if I go to Texas, I'm going to go see South Fork in Dallas.
Yeah.
But because you grew up with your parents watching Dallas, or that was our perception, or my perception of America.
Yeah.
So when you come out west and you see the mountains and the open space, and it's not that urban lifestyle that's depicted in, I mean, the only rural program that we grew up with was Little House on the Prairie. That's it.
Yeah.
But at most, my growing up in America was more the urban lifestyle.
No,
So
I can see that culture kind of being embedded in all that stuff. I'm always fascinated.
You arrive in Colorado and you go, oh, this is awesome.
So whitewater rafting. For folks who don't, I think they maybe have an understanding of what it is. Talk to me from the perspective of the guide. Like, what is that? Just give me a day in the life of a whitewater rafting guide. Like, what goes into the gig? What are the things you worried about? What are the things that the job entails? Just so folks have an understanding of the job itself.
What it takes. Well, there's a variety of different whitewater rafting. I mean, you have everything from class 1 to class 5. Class 1 being just a gorgeous float trip. Like, it's more dangerous in your bathtub. It's just floating down a gorgeous river. And then, as you move up through the classes, class 3 being the most common class, enough whitewater to get you wet but not scare anybody. And class 5 being the extreme adrenaline, there's a very good chance you're going to fall out of the boat, and there's a very good chance we may not get you immediately, and you're going to go for a good swim, so you've got to be pretty athletic. And I think that's where the industry has evolved. If you think about where I was 30 years ago, it was like, we just took anybody, and it wasn't about fitness, and it was, now we're a little bit more, we scrutinize where people are going. But a typical guiding job is, you get there, you get your equipment ready, just like any job, and you get prepared. What makes it so interesting, and I tell everybody, I say we're in the people business, you don't know who you're going to meet. And you could have, all one group on your boat. You could have multiple different groups on a boat, depending on the size of the boat that you're in. So you're meeting people. For me, it was great because I was meeting people from all around the United States. And, some international visitors. That's grown over the years. But it was predominantly folks from the United States. Mm-hmm. And 30 years ago, I think you were counted as the extreme parent if you were going to take your kids whitewater rafting. Right now, it's like you can't come to Colorado, or you shouldn't come to Colorado in the summertime you need to go rafting. It's part of our experience of visiting Colorado. So that side of it, you don't know who you're going to get. And then depending on who you get in your boat is going to dictate the conversation. Sometimes people are there, they don't want to talk to you. They're just there to take it in and relax and be involved in nature. Sometimes it's just question upon question, and it can be everything. You talk about, where people are from, how you got here. I think people are fascinated about you as a guide. They want to hear that story. Most parents look at the guide in the back of the boat if they're with their kids, and let's say their kids are, older teenagers. They're like, oh, I hope my daughter or son doesn't turn out to be the raft guide, and the raft guide is like, this is epic, and talking about how an awesome job it is, and the parent who's all thinking, ready for their kid to hit the corporate America, and the kid's looking at the back of the boat and going, that seems like a cool gig.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you say, it's all different people and conversations, but you can't ever forget that you got people's lives.
I was going to ask you about that, the risk side of it, right?
That is the most important thing, and that is something that every guide in any kind of outdoor rec, you can never forget that. You start your day off, understanding that, your worst day is different. Like, people can get hurt. Mm-hmm. Worst case scenario, people can die. And you've got to go into your job every day knowing that that can happen. And it can happen for medical reasons. It can happen for accidents on there. And be conscious and confident of your ability that you're going to provide a safe, enjoyable, memorable experience, and memorable in the right way. Because things happen out there in outdoor rec. And that is something you got to be prepared about. And I've had plenty of staff over the years, and I love it when a young guide comes to me and says, you know what, this guiding thing isn't for me. I don't want that responsibility. That takes a lot of guts to acknowledge that you don't want that responsibility.
You're good with that.
You're good.
You're good with that.
I love that honesty. That versus somebody going into it thinking
cocky,
or we always joke about it. A second-year guide's probably the most dangerous guide.
Yeah, because he thinks he knows.
He knows it all. First-year guide is timid, and fear in any kind. Fear is good. Fear keeps it healthy. Fear keeps you safe. And Mother Nature, you've always got to have that respect. Mother Nature is always more powerful. And I tell everybody, a good guide is going to finesse the river versus you're never going to brute strength it. You might, but every once in a while, it's going to catch you.
When did you realize, obviously you guided for quite some time before, starting the company. Was there ever a time where you were like, I'm not sure I want to keep doing this because of that risk part
Not
of it?
because of the risk. I was confident that if anything happened, I was trained well enough, and I was confident. And I've been in some situations that, you never know how you're going to react until you're in it. I mean, you can think that this individual, you can have a 10-year guide plus, and when it comes to a situation, the rookie guide might have been the guide that really stepped up because no one knows how you're going to react to that situation in there. I was confident in my own ability. I was confident in how I was trained. So it never really worried me on that. What really worried me was more the career financial side of, can I make a living doing this? And I think that is the dilemma that most guides, we're so passionate about it, and we feel it's kind of a sellout when you become into the office, or you get involved in admin, or you become the boathouse manager, or you become the lead guide, and maybe you're not on the river as much. Is that a sellout? Or but I think that's the next step to the careers. I don't think there's a few guides that can keep doing it, but your body eventually is going to be like, I can't do this 5, 6, 7 days a week or throughout the whole summer, because it is physically demanding on you. And financially, it's a tough industry to be in as a guide, because it's a ramp up. You don't make consistent money, throughout your guiding life.
Mm-hmm.
And the other side of what people have to understand is most outdoor rec is in resort communities. They're expensive places to live.
Yeah.
So
There's probably a lot of roommates and a lot of
a lot of
tripling up.
roommates,
Yeah.
and the social side, and so that was my. I was like, I love this industry. I love being a guide. How do I keep in this industry? So my natural progression, which is why when I reached out to my first boss and said, hey, can I help you with marketing? Can I help you with sales? It was a way to supplement my income. And then you realize you got to do these extra roles, extra jobs to supplement the income to, eventually make a home here.
Yeah. So you started Venture Outdoors, but the impetus behind it was we were talking about it before the show. You said that you recognized just kind of how discombobulated the adventure experience was for the clients. Was that and I'd love to talk about that, but was that the initial reason why you decided that, or was the initial reason like, hey, I need to financially get to a better rung here. Let me start taking more ownership of what I'm doing.
Yeah, I saw an opportunity. That's it. And I think I think but more part of my personality, you see an opportunity, you go for it. I've always, my father instilled in me that what's the worst thing somebody can say? No, get used to it.
Yeah.
So what? So, I was always looking for that opportunity. And then I realized an opportunity existed because most outdoor rec companies were started as mom and pop operations. They were started because people were passionate about, horseback riding, rafting, whatever the recreation was. So you start as a mom and pop operation, and you start with one or two boats and you do it, and then you grow from there. And then you realize, I'm not guiding anymore. Now I'm driving the bus. Now I'm answering the phone. And these companies grew. I think what I realized still in the 2000s was we had all these individual smaller companies that are all fighting for that phone to ring. So why don't we set up a company that can be a one-stop call center? And then when somebody's calling up to book a rafting trip, I can mention to them on the phone, hey, would you like to do a horseback ride too? Oh, yeah, you do that too. Oh, yeah, we do it. Now, it mightn't have been us, but we were the call center for the stables.
Yeah.
And we got a commission. So I built my business saying to all these businesses, how about I handle your phones? How about I handle your calendar? How about we cross-promote, we cross-sell? And I think that's the business side of it that was a wonderful opportunity for me because as business owners, we sort of close the doors. We don't, we're private about how we do business. Mm-hmm. Yet, we're trying to grow our business. And I brought all these owners together and said, hey, why don't we all join up together? And they had faith and confidence in this concept and said, yeah, Ken, why don't you take over my phones? Why don't you take over our calendar and be this centralized operation? Now, I owned only two of the attractions or two of the activities, and yet I was servicing, let's say, a dozen. And then as we grew, and then I would say, well, if I book your trip for you, I get a commission. And so we grew from there. And then eventually, a lot of the industry owners there they had started their companies 10 years ago, and they were deciding to move on. So I took that as opportunity. Hey, when you're ready to move on, I'll buy you out, or why don't you come and fold into this and be my business partner?
Yeah.
So that's how we grew the company.
The two activities you had at the beginning were
bike rentals,
okay,
and river toy rentals. So
and what is it, river toy rentals?
River toy rentals. So think about like inner tubes or duckies or wasn't stand-up paddleboards then. That's been a new activity. But let's say like an inflatable kayak or inner tubes and bike rentals.
Okay.
And that's all I had. And we offered rafting. So I went to a rafting company and said, hey, I will book rafting trips for you. You can be on the river. You can be running your trips. We'll handle your operation for you. And these folks were passionate about being on the outdoors. Yeah, let me on the river. You take over the admin side. And then we eventually bought them out. And then we did that too. We used to do Segway tours for gentlemen, and we bought the Segway tours. And then we brought in the ranch, who's my current business partner to this day, brought in the ranch activities and the horseback riding and the UTV tours and the skeet shooting. And so we evolved all that to this concept. And then I think what really helped us grow was the hotels and resort communities. We simplified their lives. So if you think you're a concierge or front desk and somebody comes up and says, tell me about rafting. And then they follow up, well, now tell me about horseback riding and where can I rent a bike? Now the front desk person was said, hey, here's one phone number, here's one website.
They'll take care of you.
They'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And we simplified the system not only for the hotels and the concierge, we simplified it for the visitor. And now it's interesting because that consolidation, I think maybe the first to really go into that consolidation of all the attractions and different revenue streams versus being single focus. If you think about the rafting companies back then, that's all they did was rafting. If you were a stables, all you did was horseback riding.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a climber, you just offered climbing trips. We brought them all under one umbrella. Now we see in the industry so much more consolidation. You have like adventure centers, and they provide all the activities. And also, too, by doing that, I think it made my company a little bit more stable. When
could deal with the seasons,
but also deal with different, how Mother Nature might throw us for a few curveballs, whether there's less water in the rivers, or we can utilize the ranch activities. We had different revenue streams. We weren't so singularly focused. And we were able to grow across all of these different recreation opportunities.
And you didn't mind, I think that the admin side of it didn't bother you at all, taking in all that? Because I imagine for a guy who is adrenaline in the blood,
yeah,
that is kind of where you want to stay the furthest away. Why was that such an okay thing for you to take on?
I think it came with the maturity of having a family and a career, wanting a career and living in a resort. And I saw it as a way to be in the industry, and it was a way to be stable within the industry, and be stable living in a resort community. It was a lifestyle decision. I could have been a guide for a number of more years working for these guiding companies, but again, that wasn't going to allow me to grow a family, live in these expensive communities. And I also was always passionate about business too, and that I loved as well.
Yeah.
I liked the business side of it. I liked the people side of the business, like the marketing, the sales. I generally love the sales side. I think being Irish, the gift of the gab,
Yeah, again, it goes. There's a natural current with the way you talk to folks. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Do you find, was it I'm curious about that side of the things when you were helping these guys and these smaller outfits when you first started off with sales and marketing?
Yeah.
What were the things you were doing that were helping them? Was it rocket science things or?
It was back then. It was the growth of the internet. So it was the start of the internet. If you think about the, 97, 98, 99, 2000. So it was getting online and it was growing the website. And, we didn't have online reservation systems back then.
You called always.
You called always. And that's where this industry's also evolved in the sense of back then it was all relationships, network building, face-to-face. Now it's not face-to-face. And I think, where the industry's evolved, which has been fascinating to see, is, people book a car rental or a hotel now, and they never speak to a front desk. It's only in the last 5-6 years that people feel comfortable with outdoor recreation that they will book without calling. We used to have we built my business on a call center because people wanted to know, is it safe to take my kid rafting? Do you have a horse suitable for my height, suitable for my weight? Is it okay to go on a UTV tour? Where are you going to take all these questions? As technology has evolved into the websites, we've, with video, with the storytelling we can say, people watch and see. The only thing they're not doing is smelling it right now is, so they're seeing it on the website, they're booking it, and the call center concept is decreased immensely. I used to have, maybe a dozen people answering phones. We're down to maybe 2 because people are more comfortable booking recreation online. So my concept that I brought, started my company with wouldn't work now.
Very different.
Very, very different. I think now it's all about search engine optimization, and it's all like who are we hiring in our industry right now? We're looking for people that are passionate about the outdoors, but also have got the finance background or the IT background, or that's where the careers are, it's I'm generalizing here or saying this, but the finance majors or the accountants maybe didn't grow up in the outdoor recreation side of it as much or passionate about the outdoors as maybe the marketing, PR, communications graduate or
Sure.
student would have
Yeah.
been. So it's finding somebody in finance that's passionate about the outdoors, that wants to work in outdoor rec, who's eventually going to handle your books and do all of that, or the graphic designer that wants to help you with your brochures. And even that, the brochures now have disappeared. It's more the coding guy that can develop your website,
Yeah. Make it
different, and the reservation systems and building on that, or how do we integrate reservation systems with third party businesses. So it's been an awesome 30 years to be involved in this business because it's evolving. It's like every few years, whether it was equipment. If you think about boats, when I first started raft guiding, it was a bucket boat, which means that the water came into the boat, and the only way you got the water out of the boat was a 5-gallon bucket. And you gave it to a guest who literally their job going down the river was every once in a while, get the water, throw it out of the boat. There was more injuries with the 5-gallon bucket than there was with the rapids or the paddles because they'd be turning around in the boat and smacking people in the face with the bucket. So now, we don't have bucket boats as much. We have self-bailing boats. The water goes in and leaves the boat. So, initially it was the equipment evolving. And as the equipment evolving, we became a safer industry, more accessible industry for everybody. Now, then you look at technology, how that's changed the industry in a sense of people being able to see recreation across the world. You're booking your trip in Europe or Colorado or wherever through video. You're watching it and saying, that's epic.
Yeah.
It used to be picking up the ski magazine and looking at the resorts and maybe going to a Warren Miller ski movie and going, oh, that resort looks cool. Now we get to see it, and
It's just a lot different way to deliver
it's a
these
lot
things than
way
you
we're
gotta do it.
recreating completely.
When you were going back to taking over when you would kind of roll these companies into the bigger brand, and let's say that owner was going to retire or move on or do something, how did you secure that operation still running, without that key person there anymore?
I learned it by building the relationships because I couldn't sell it unless I understood it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I went on Segway tours. I went horseback riding. I went UTV tours. I understood it. And then we also said to these, it was part of being involved. So I got to know those industries. And then, knowledge is key. And then from that knowledge, could I saddle a horse to this day? No, nor do I claim to. It's understanding where you can go and understanding, but I can sell the experience easy.
Yeah.
And that's, I suppose, you look upon your strengths and your weaknesses. And my strengths is I could sell the experience, and I could sell it in a way where people felt comfortable doing business with me, understanding that we're there to provide the best, safest experience for you, for your hard-earned dollar. Some people who go with us, this is all they have. This is the one thing they're going to do, and this is going to make or break them, And for other people, it's a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
And it's that's important. And that was my focus too, is no matter who you were or where you were coming from or what demographic you're coming from, we were going to give you that awesome experience and provide you the best customer service and grow it from there. And I, to this day, do my best in the office that I work at is I try to meet every guest that walks into my business.
Oh, do you really?
I still check people in. I'm there, and I believe that's important. Whether you're an owner or a general manager or a lead guide, I think people need to feel comfortable, and they need to feel that you are a professional run organization.
Mm-hmm.
What other industry do you walk into, you're buying something, you're buying an experience, and the very first thing we tell you to do is go sign a waiver where it talks about death and injury and everything else.
Yeah.
So as soon as they, read that, and a lot of people don't to this day, but as soon as they read the waiver, they got to feel safe and they feel comfortable.
You got to meet them where it's at.
Meet them where it's at and set the expectation. And I try to do that in our equipment and our customer service and our website, where people feel as if these guys know what they're doing.
Did you have to, with the people that you kind of left, like the teammates and the folks that are running it, the owner, the old owner leaves of that outfit, now it's yours. Did you always make sure there was some general manager or some senior person there operationally that can keep the baton going?
I think that's key. And then eventually, but there's also maybe a cultural shift. That's the other thing. When you take over a business and you do that, some of the old staff may not like the culture that you're bringing to the table. And that's something that you have to, it's not personal, it's just they may not like your culture. And I deal with that every day of the week. It's when you're the boss, you got to be tough-skinned, and then, I think as the entrepreneurial spirit, I have my way of doing business.
Yeah.
And you have a choice as an employee. If you like my way of doing business then maybe we're going to flourish as that employer-employee relationship. I also think it's really important to me, I am only as good as my staff, period. I can have the best website, the best equipment. We may look the most professional out there in a sense of our equipment and our gear and our office and our website. But realistically, it all comes down to the people that are on a boat with you, or the wranglers that are on the ride with you, or the bike tech that fits you up with the bike. And it starts there. I'm with you. I'm there greeting you and taking your money. But the guides are with you for 2.5 hours or a full day, or if it's a multi-day trip, they're the ones that are representing you out there, and you're only as good as your staff. In this business, you're only as good as your staff, period. And I tell everybody, I'm a chapter in their book. Very few of us get to make careers in this industry. And 95% of folks, this is an amazing chapter for them. They go on to different careers, and I hopefully, when they move on their careers, the door is always open. Come on in and visit me with your family and your kids. And now when they come on back and I see some staff walk in and they're married and the kids, it makes me feel old. I'm like, I remember you as a young 20-year-old when you were a river guide and I could tell you stories to their spouse. I'm like, if only you knew. But on the other side of things, that is my, I've been really blessed to have the right people.
Yeah.
And, and this, every year you look at your crew and, your staff there's a life span, and it can be 3 years, it can be 4 years, it can be 2 years, but returning staff are awesome. I mean, they know your systems, it's safer. So you try to always get returning staff. But amongst the staff, they build a camaraderie. They become a really tight group. Anybody that's worked in outdoor rec, or, you said you were part of the military, you become tight when you're out there in the field with your team. So they get tight. So when one or two begin to leave and move on to their careers, or their next chapter, you have a tendency maybe to lose more because they're like, my buddies aren't coming back. I'm going to go
move on,
or we say,
and a lot of them are moving on, like outside of the industry, right?
We call it into the real world. And I tell them, we are in the real world. This is the real world. We're lucky.
Yeah.
It's that perception that people have, let's say, from the urban areas, that this ain't real. This is just as real as you working in your corporate job or you in the office.
Yeah.
But again, the only thing real about it right now in our industry is the cost of living and the pay, and that maybe not be as real as it should be.
Can you be a long-term guide? Like
you can.
You can.
You got to look after your body, and depending on what you do, look after your body, and you can be it. But again, the long-term guides work more than everybody else too.
Yeah.
I mean, your senior staff, I always tell everybody what I do is always think what a judge thinks. So for instance, I not to the detriment of my first year or second year guides, but it's always in my best interest to put my most senior staff out. And then intertwine my first years and second years and let them grow and learn from your senior guides and let them evolve, So can you be a senior guide and live? Yes, you can do it. It's tough. It's tough financially. It's tough on your family. You know, if you're a multi-day guide, you're gone
You're
for
gone
days.
a lot. Yeah.
You're gone a lot. If I'm predominantly we predominantly do day trips. So my senior staff get to go home. And I have staff that have got families and mortgages, and this is what they do, and they're passionate about this. They work for me for a season, and then they work for the ski resorts, and they're patrollers or they're ski instructors, and they've worked their way up the ranks within those industries too. The goal of what I feel my biggest goal for those staff is to make sure I can drag my season out as long as possible for them, so they don't have as much of an off season. So, you know, we try to make sure that you know, recreation, this is the other thing that's changed in 30 years. Whitewater rafting used to be, when I rafted, as you know, when I first started, June 15th to August 15th. That's when we did it. Now people are rafting as early as April, and we're going, our last trip last year was first week in November.
Wow.
You know, climate change is changing that. Our seasons are
You guys are getting warmer throughout the
getting warmer.
year.
We're getting longer. You know,
People
maybe,
getting tougher, maybe.
what's that?
Maybe people getting tougher.
People are getting tougher. Yeah, maybe people are. But the
More
equipment's
extreme.
getting better. You know, the wetsuits, the paddle jackets.
Yeah.
We can recreate in different climate, weather conditions. So, you know, yeah. So and it's in my best interest to make sure I'm looking after my senior staff.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it's in also my best interest to make sure I'm looking after my first year, second year guides,
Growing them
because
up.
they are my potential senior staff. So, yeah, as I said, you're only as good as those guys in making sure you're looking after everybody, you know.
Yeah,
And-
it's a bit of this dance that you kind of have to do constantly,
Balance.
nurture and balance.
Balance that and make sure that they're all, you know, I tell everybody to, generalizing a little bit here, but to be a guide, you're kind of type A. So you're putting a lot of type A personalities into a boathouse, you know, confident young men, young women into a situation. And they're all, I think, outdoor rec breeds leaders. I mean, it's just, it's very similar. We talk about being an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a reason corporate America hires Division I athletes. You know, and I think guides deal with are similar. They're athletes in their own way, and they're dealing with Mother Nature, and they're dealing with all the trials and tribulations that comes with a day of being outside and dealing with the general public, and the confidence you have to have. You know, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of similarities in my time. I remember in the service, and I'd talk and catch up with mountain guides. I think they're forced into a situation that individually is very, I mean, for anybody, is very stressful just to survive in an environment. And then in a weird way, you have to keep your composure about yourself because there's a lot of people looking to you to instill confidence in them.
Yeah.
And it is a skill that you can't read about. You just have to experience. You have to understand what you're about. And then you can kind of go in there. And I can see why that's directly applicable to the world. I think it's something that a lot of the times can get dismissed, whether you're an athlete or former military or mountain guide, and then you kind of pursue the corporate world. It just seems so irrelevant. Like, that's not important. And the reality of it is it might be the most important thing, which is I used to tell young officers coming up that used to advise for like, hey, any advice you have for leading a team? And I'd say sometimes, man, when it's really going bad, like there's no way out of it. The only thing you can do for your team, the only thing you can give them is your calm.
Yeah.
Inside, you might be as scared as heck as they are. But at the end of the day, what's odd is that your calm is what will allow them to will a decision into existence and make their way through if there's any chance at all. But it's your calm. And I imagine it's the same thing with guiding. Like at some points, Mother Nature is going to throw you a left swing, and there's nothing you can do but take it on the chin.
Yeah.
But your people are looking at you, looking at this guide going, if they're freaking out, then I'm sure as heck jumping out of this
And if you think about, you know, generally it's a younger guide. I mean, it's dad coming out, or my dad and mom coming out with the kids, and dad's looking at the back of the boat or the climbing guide or whoever and goes, wow, my family's in the hands of a 21-year-old kid at the back of a boat, you know? So you got to make them feel comfortable that guide is trained well and comes across as confident. And the guide, I tell the guides, be yourself. There's a reason you're in this industry. There's a reason that I hired you. I saw it in you. So be that person. you know. And again, a different perspective, but somewhat on the same. You know, I've got 2 daughters. So, you know, bringing up women within the industry too, I mean, they've had to fight. Even into this day, it's interesting to see the perception of how the general public looks as females within the guiding roles. It's amazing the amount of moms when we introduce guides. You know, we do the safety orientation. We do this, whether it's, you know, I'm going to talk about whitewater rafting here. We do the safety orientation, and then we call you out by your last name, and we say, all righty, you know, Smith party of 4, you are with Jill. And then they meet Jill, the guide, and then mom quickly runs into the office, you know, and walks up to the front desk and says, can we have a male guide? And you're like, wow.
That's the mother saying
and
this?
the mother's saying this, you know, of all, you would think, you know. And, you know, the female guides, they still, it's getting a lot better. Oh, it's improved immensely. But, you know, and I always tell everybody, female river guides, from day one, they've learned how to finesse their way down the river. You know, the big guy that shows up with the big muscles and, you know, and he's brute forcing down the river. Brute force is not going to win.
It's not going to win.
Not
No,
gonna
you
win.
might be in the best hands. Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of
Yeah.
using I think being in the service, I always enjoyed, don't get me wrong, really enjoyed anytime a helicopter came in and pulled us out of a bad
Yeah.
situation. But every time it was a gal pilot, I actually had a lot of ease because I recognized that I even think about my wife. They don't, especially with something that's highly technical, this thing, you're not going to like, if it was up to me, I'd be forcing a switch into and it's going to probably break the thing. So I just recognize, especially if we were coming in and out of bad weather or something like that, I always actually had a lot more calm because I knew they were going to, like you said, they're going to finesse their way through it
Yeah.
and work with it, as opposed to our natural nature, which is working like a little bit more combative in the way that we think about things. So that
Some
makes
of the best guides I've
Yeah.
ever seen, whether it be whatever recreation it's been, female guides.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And again, it's that perception of what people think they want to get,
Sure.
you know? It's just interesting to see the public react when they're introduced to the guide.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
funny.
And it's interesting to see how the guide personality has evolved. You know, I think the perception we've as an industry, you know, we're $1 billion industry. You know, right now in Colorado, recreation has more, you know, it's bigger to the economy than oil and gas. So the guides, you know, yes, there is the guides with the dreadlocks and that whole appearance and the look and the perception.
Yeah, look like a bum, like a bum,
Yeah,
like a mountain bum.
but you know, they're living in their tent up halfway up a mountain. But now I think the guides and you know, we've evolved into a more professional industry. And, you know, your all-American kid is sitting at the back of the boat or taking the horseback ride out and so on.
No, that's right.
You know, it's nothing against, you know, the dreadlocks tattoos. I mean, there's wonderful guides, you know, but I think that impression that people have of who's at the back of the boat or who's leading the climb or doing that, the industry is definitely evolved.
Evolving.
Yeah.
Speaking of where things are going, how do you think about kind of the future of this industry for generations to come? I know there's you know, probably thoughts about, you know, the way y'all make your money is using the land.
Yeah.
You know, and the way what it gives you. What are the things that keep you up at night?
Is there going to be water in our rivers?
Specifically in Colorado?
Specifically, yeah. Is there going to be waters in our rivers next year? Is there, you know, is the mountains going to be accessible due to fires? We have a lot on our plate. We're growing. And in recreation, you know, there's a balance. We're Mother's Nature's amusement park. We're not an amusement park. We're not Disneyland.
Yeah.
You know, you know, it's finding that balance about how many people that can utilize that resource that is not diminishing that resource, but also is not diminishing the experience. I know we talked prior to the interview about protecting the resource and protecting the experience. You know, that's where as an industry we got to think and think hard about it. And I think access, and people complain that, you know, about, you know, the days of as a private user, you have to have permits, or you've got to get timed entry, whether it be into some of these managed use areas like Maroon Bells. I have another company that we manage these high recreation areas such as Maroon Bells and Hanging Lake, which are two iconic destinations in Colorado to hiking wilderness access areas, being Maroon Bells, and Hanging Lake is the most gorgeous, beautiful hike. But we couldn't keep having 3,000 people show up per day to go visit Hanging Lake. We had to come up with a managed use plan. I think I've been really lucky to be at the right time in the right place, where a U.S. Forest Service supervisor, a guy called Scott Fitzwilliam, who actually came from Alaska. And Scott was a breath of fresh air when dealing with the Forest Service. He came from an area whereby he had to work with outfitters and private enterprise because of the vastness of dealing with Alaska's wilderness. Mm-hmm. So when he came to Colorado and was managing White River National Forest, the largest recreational forest we have in the United States, it's where all the ski areas are on it, he came here, and he came here with this open-minded of, we have to work with these guys. We have to. It's in our best interest. So when it came to Hanging Lake, which was in the White River National Forest, he reached out to private enterprise and said, if you were to manage Hanging Lake, how would you manage it? What a great way to do an RFP.
Yeah.
And we were one of the companies that said, all right, if we managed Hanging Lake, this is what we would do. And he was like, the Forest Service was like, this is a great idea. Why don't you guys do it, and we'll be a partner with you in doing it? So we developed this, they gave us the amount of people that should visit Hanging Lake per day, and then we came up with the timed entry of, we'll allow certain people come in at 7, 8, 9, 10 throughout the day. And that is protecting the resource for the next generations. Because, we tell everybody, we're actually in the restroom and parking business. Because that's where it starts.
That's where it starts. Yeah.
That's where it starts. And that infrastructure is going to limit how many people can recreate in these areas. The boat ramp can only accommodate a certain amount of boats. So as recreation's growing now, and it's become this billion-dollar industry, is how do we still provide the opportunity to people to recreate without ruining the resource, so it's there for the next generations to come? And that's where the industry's going next, and finding that balance. I think, even in ski areas, how many people can ski or run for it to feel like a great ski run? How many people do we want? Too many people create a long lift line. And we saw that during, COVID, when everybody came to Colorado, wanted to be in the outdoors. And so I think it's managing that, because if we don't, first of all, if the resource gets ruined, people aren't going to want to come. And if the experience is ruined, people aren't going to think it's good value or it's a good product they paid for. And they're, people who recreate with me, they're my salespeople. They're going home and saying, you've got to go do this. So we have to provide that quality experience. So I think the industry's on this cusp of figuring out what is our capacities. Now, the wilderness is the wilderness. But I think high use areas, we're now having to talk about capacities.
So what I hear you kind of saying is, it's kind of all things in balance. It's not do whatever you want, just run the land until it's nothing. And it's also not, hey, restrict the heck out of it and nobody's having any fun.
Exactly.
There's got to be some way to
some balance.
Some balance.
And people might look at, as operators myself, and think that we are the ruination of outdoor recreation. We're the guys taking advantage, making the buck out of bringing people there. It's in my best interest to make sure that trail is in the pristine condition, or that river is in pristine condition. Otherwise, people aren't going to do business with me. If I offer a bad product, as I said earlier, we're in the people business. If I offer that bad product, people aren't going to want to do business with me. So, guides and administrators that are in private enterprise that works in outdoor recreation, we are as much stewards of the land as the person wearing the U.S. Forest Service emblem.
Yeah.
We're in partners with, Division of Parks and Wildlife, or U.S. Forest Service, or Bureau of Land Management. we're sitting right there with them, and we want to make sure that this land is protected. And those people who feel different shouldn't be in our industry, period. You know,
There's a mutual respect you have for each other.
Has to be. And as you train them and you bring them into our industry, as owners, we should be educating our staff about that every day. And they see it. They go out there and they're like, oh, that's a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And then your idea is, well, you know, the concern, though, is if you look at the business aspect then of this, is capacities, it's that supply and demand. And if we limit capacity and the cost of doing business, the cost of entry or the cost to participate is going to grow, which then is going to limit who can recreate. So we have to find this balance to provide outdoor recreation to all demographics and all pocketbooks. And if we lose sight of that, we'll only be providing the experience to the people who can afford it, which is what it's not all about. You know. So again, it's finding that balance, and that's where our industry's, I think, struggling right now, because the cost of doing business, the cost of insurance, labor costs, you know, everything's getting more expensive. But we're a luxury item, and you know, people can decide whether they want to raft or go on a Jeep tour or go skiing, and if we price ourselves out of it, you know,
You might not have something for the future.
you may not have a business a year or two from now. So it's finding that balance. And I'm passionate about getting, you know, all different demographics out in the outdoor recreation. And because they're the future guides.
Yeah.
And we got to get, you know, we got to make capacities. So here's the problem with capacities and finding this balance. If you're only allowed to take 100 people on a particular section of river or on a particular climb or trail, then one thing you don't want to do is offer a discount, because the cost of doing business. So you want to sell your 100 folks of what you're going to charge. But again, that's, you know, that's going to be tough then, because you're not going to provide the activity for the Boy Scouts or the church groups or the, you know, folks in different demographics of wealth.
Yeah. You might have a really killer potential guide coming up, but I never got that experience.
Yeah.
Then the world missed out on someone really incredible. Yeah, I can see what
Like
you mean.
I'm all for, you know, education in the outdoors. If we can get the school districts understanding how important it is to get on the river, in the sense of when you're studying science or geography or history, and understanding the balance and getting the school districts to embrace that. And here in Colorado, we're seeing that. They're embracing outdoor rec as part of the educational side of being a school kid here locally. But we got to make it attainable.
Yeah. Ken, it's been killer, man. I got one thought to close out on, and I think just because you're unique. This show is really about folks chasing their American dream, building it, sacrificing for it. And I see a guy here who's done it, who's doing it. It's not even American, like originally. And I think about so many folks that I talk to, the team and I talk to, we kind of do these like town halls when we go to places, and they're casual, but they're still kind of a way to inspire each other. And there's just a lot of folks that just, quite frankly, have a lot of apprehensions, or they're hesitant, or I would just say maybe they kind of don't possess that confidence, whatever it might be. There's always a reason they haven't yet taken that step. But it didn't seem to scare you at all, and if it did, it didn't seem to stop you. Maybe I'm curious, like, what is it about what this country has given you, or being a part of it, that you feel particularly either grateful for and inspired by? Like, I can see you right now. You're just fired up about what you do. And I often find it hard to find Americans that are fired up about what they do. What is that?
It's still the land of opportunity. It still is. This country, I think, and I've traveled, and this country is still the most entrepreneurial, small business spirited country in the world, period. And I think people are excited about owning your own business and the confidence of having to do that. And I think, too, is the backbone, really, of this country is small business. So whether it's whitewater rafting or it's owning a restaurant or a retail store, I think people understand that and the opportunities there. And I think, I still think it's there. People might think it's disappeared.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the uncertainty is I think, well, going back to this whole comment of what's the worst thing people can say is no. I think maybe we've lost a little bit of toughness in a sense of we don't like to hear the word no. I think we got to toughen up and hear the word no and move on to the next question and get a yes eventually, or figure out a way to make that no a maybe and make the maybe a yes. Because if you give up on the no, you're going nowhere. You're going nowhere. So I think that's the one thing that maybe the yes is still here. You just got to look for it. It's
Maybe
there.
there's a way to re-spark
There's a way
it.
to do it, and it's and that again, the opportunity may not be here, but it might be just next to it. And
Yes.
you got to look for that, and that's where this country's awesome.
And is that why when you say you traveled around and what don't you see over there that you see here? Like, is it regs or is it spirit or what is it?
Well, I think there's an Irish side of when you go out on your own or you become a business person on your own, people are like, somebody helped him along the way or somebody gave him the nudge. He didn't go out there and do it on his own, or or it's a begrudging side of like, oh, look at him being so successful. It's like, but here in the States, people embrace that success, and it's and there's so many different levels of success. I don't do what I do to have the biggest house in the hill. I love what I do, and I'm lucky to be able to live here and do it. And then people like yourself are interested in hearing about somebody who started their own business.
Yeah.
And there's people are still fascinated about that, and they want to learn from that. And hopefully people, hear this from me and go, if one person hears and goes out and asks the question tomorrow about, hey, I think I'm going to go do this. What do you think? And someone says no, and they move to the next person, and they get the yes and go do it. Hey,
yeah,
that's been awesome.
No, you did it. You did a great give back. Yeah, no, that's right.
And that's what I tell. And again, that's what I love about being in this industry too, is I'm surrounded by generally 18 to 30-year-olds, and I'm there to say, what's the worst thing that people can say?
Yeah.
Go get after it, And those are ones that maybe take no as and they come in and they're like, oh, I'm like, get over it. Go rephrase the question. You might get a maybe, and then rephrase it another way. You might get a yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something we can remember about the Irish spirit, which is a little bit, you got to have that. I had a guest on our show, and he said, and his name is TJ, and I love the way he puts it, is you got to have there's like a dog in you. You got to have that fight. Great entrepreneurs and folks who build and own companies.
Yeah.
Have that fighting spirit. That's something that it's like getting punched in the face and realizing I can get back after it and go do it again.
And not taking it personally.
And not taking it personally.
Yeah.
And going. So, well, Ken, thanks for all you do, man.
My
really
pleasure.
Getting you here today, not only, I'm just personally in love with and fascinated. I've always had a lot of respect for the outdoor industry, being a guy who's led teams through the mountains and, kind of understand what that's like to be in the outdoors and having lives at stake while also trying to show at time they can change people's lives. It's not an easy gig to balance, but it seems like you've been doing it gracefully. Now you got over 160 folks in your, in your company, and you guys are growing, man. So thanks for all you do. And I can see why, as I look around here, it's easy to get up every morning and go to work.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for tuning in to the American Operator Podcast, where we celebrate the backbone of America, small business owners and operators like you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss out on more of these stories and insights from people who keep our community strong. Until next time, keep building, keep operating, and keep America moving forward.